Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here. We are back with even more news in the Final Fantasy XIV landscape. Everyone is still kind of recovering from what was one of the most surprising live letters in recent history. Live letter number 89, which featured the announcement of the removal of glamour restrictions, confirmation of the raid planner finally coming out, and a good look at a good variety of content for 7.4. And while it wasn't a perfect live letter, it's definitely got people buzzing a little bit more positively than they have been in recent months. That being said, there was a little hidden gem that was lost amongst all of this live letter news that you'd have to be following one of the lead devs on Twitter in order to find. Something that's been becoming more and more commonplace when it comes to my videos is that we get a little bit more insight into the content development thanks to none other than Masaki Nakagawa, the lead battle designer for Final Fantasy XIV, or one of the leads. He is also more commonly known in the community as Mr. Ozma because he creates very unique challenges, often on the more challenging side. I think he has a little bit of a masochistic streak if you were to look at some of the past fights that he's actually released. But he's been posting a lot on social media, and it's given raiders in particular something to really chow down on, something to get excited about in between the patches or leading up to content that we already know is coming. And you know what? The day of the live letter, that didn't change at all, because he had two separate posts that anyone who saw them immediately raised an eyebrow and, very curious. Now, the first one was actually just a quick discussion on difficulty, which I think is actually a really good discussion to be having. I'm going to read his quote verbatim and post it on the screen so you can read along. Masaki Nakagawa writes, "Difficulty is an important part of battle content, but way more important is whether the content is actually fun to play. With the final verse quantum in patch 7.35, I think you'll really feel that philosophy. If I wanted to make Q40 harder, it would be simple. Just double the fight length and it would surpass ultimate level difficulty. But I didn't do that because my goal was to deliver a dense, exciting experience packed with fun in a shorter time. The same applies to Q15 and Q30 as well. So please choose the difficulty that feels right for you and enjoy the content at your own pace." Now, this is actually a great tweet that is something that longtime raiders in 14 have definitely been shouting, especially since the release of the Criterion raids back in Endwalker. And that a lot of the difficulty when it comes to Ultimate is not just in the execution of the individual mechanics, it's the demand to be damn near perfect for such a long period of time. And this was also true for Criterion Savage as well. That being said, for the regular Criterion bosses, they were extreme to Savage difficulty mechanics packed into a under 6-minute encounter, which really improves the pace of the encounter and makes it more fun than it is a slog to go through. Even when you kind of get stuck on something, every single overcome hurdle just becomes that much more exciting to get over because you're getting closer and closer to that finish line and those rewards, whatever they may be. Sorry, Criterion. But that being said, this isn't really the main focus of what came out of Masaki Nakagawa's Twitter. While it's a fun little thing to have a discussion about, there was somebody who replied to this, and he actually does reply to a lot of people, and we can get some great information out of this stuff in the future. So if you're on Twitter, it's really good to interact with him. We might just get an answer that surprises us, kind of like the one we're about to talk about right now. So we have at OvionEZ tweeting, "Q40 is one of the best fights in the game in my honest opinion. Thanks, Mr. Ozma. Switching target is troublesome, true, but it has nothing to do with the fight itself. May I ask, by the way, if you can say it, of course, if you're involved somehow with the next Savage? Thanks again and good luck." Now, you would expect a simple yes or no, please look forward to it style answer, but that's just not how Mr. Ozma goes about teasing things on social media. His response tweet is the thing I really wanted to talk about in this video. "I'm not involved in the 7.4 raid. Yeah, it's a little disappointing, but there are some good teams. Another amazing team is handling that with full dedication. After finishing my work on 7.3, I've been focused on a major piece of content for 7.5x. It's something new and fresh for Final Fantasy XIV. I can't say more right now, but I'm pouring everything into it so that all of you can enjoy a truly new experience." Now, this is A bold statement. Final Fantasy XIV has a track record of kind of being same old, with the occasional diversion. Dawn Trail and Endwalker have tried to break the mold a little bit, with some successes and some not so big successes, especially looking back at Endwalker, where rewards were a major harped feature, and even the better encounters were largely ignored in the face of the game's problems. That being said, Pilgrim's Traverse has sort of lit a match with a lot of people in seeing what a game for everyone actually looks like for Final Fantasy XIV. I have never seen so many people actually interested in being involved in a deep dungeon, even if it came at the cost of the hardcore deep dungeon people maybe not being as excited about it unless they're doing something like scoring runs, for example. We also had raiders finally motivated to get in there and get involved in Quantum, and the Quantum 15 scene has been largely okay. The question of Quantum 15, Quantum 40, and everything in between, and whether or not that whole slider business, plus the involvement of so many currencies taking up inventory space, are separate discussions from the actual quality of the content as a whole. It did feel like something new and fresh, even if held within the confines of what Final Fantasy XIV normally does. Now, that being said, do I think that this statement is a little bit of hyperbole? It's hard to say without knowing what he's working on. We have a lot of things that we already know for patch 7.5, and it's easier to try to place him in those contents than it is to try to figure out if he's working on something we actually don't know about. For example, patch 7.5 is going to have the final 24-man Alliance raid. I don't think he can make that new and fresh and exciting, especially given it's based on a game that's several decades old. We have the new Ultimate, and so you could suspect that maybe he's talking about his work on the new Ultimate encounter. But Ultimates, while they are fun for the higher-end raider, I wouldn't describe them as new and fresh, even if they kind of bring some new ideas to the table, things like the rewind and DSR and the overall storytelling of that, and the absolutely grueling nature of the Omega Protocol. Not to mention, when the first Ultimate ever came out, it was something revolutionary for the game that it really had never had before. But I don't think he's referring to that either. We do also know that Blue Mage should be getting its level 90 update. I doubt he's talking about that, but more importantly, Beastmaster is slated for 7.5x as well. And Yoshida himself has actually made similar comments about that being something that Final Fantasy XIV players have never had anything like in the game. Is it possible that Mr. Ozma is actually working on Beastmaster? I'd say that that's not entirely unlikely. He is by far one of the devs that is most public with an incredibly strong track record. I mean, almost every time something with his name is released, it is mostly a hit, even if sometimes it has some other issues, such as Chaotic with its maybe a little bit over the top difficulty in regards to the body checks. I say maybe, it really was over the top. So I don't think it's entirely out of the realm of possibility that Mr. Ozma is actually working on Beastmaster, which actually makes the prospect of what is normally a kind of milquetoast lukewarm reception in that of limited jobs, especially after how Blue Mage has been going, at least a little more exciting for the limited job's initial release. The only concern is whether or not he'd be in charge of updates to that job in future patches. How much would he be involved, and would it meet the same quality that the initial release did? Given Blue Mage suffered from that problem, releasing quite well and not updating very well, I'd be kind of concerned if that was the thing he was working on. Now, of course, there is also going to be the northern horn of the Occult Crescent, as well as the new Fork Tower Magic Raid, which will have multiple difficulties. That is a place where you can explore with a lot of new ideas very safely, and it's possible that he's heavily involved in a new feature that actually takes place in there. I don't think duels are going to be returning as much as I would like them to, and even if they are, that's not necessarily something that's new and exciting. And exploration zones as a whole, I don't think you can necessarily give this kind of statement to. Again, they're just borrowing from ideas we've already had and executing them slightly differently. Even if it's not the exact same thing as what came before, it is still ultimately an exploration zone where, we've already had several of those in the past. So at this point, it's really hard to nail down what he's talking about, because if he's talking about something even in addition to that, I don't think it's another Chaotic, and it's really hard to actually make good speculation on this. This statement really does read that he might be working on Beastmaster, if only looking within the confines of the things we already know are in the patch. But if there's even something we don't know that he's working on, that's going to be even more, I'm going to say insane, because 7.5 is already loaded to the gills. And yes, it is the longest patch cycle between 7.5 and the release of the next expansion. Yes, they do spread that patch out. There is 2 parts of the story, and it is usually staggered, but it doesn't usually have the volume to match that amount of time, especially having never had an ultimate release in that time frame, which they are aiming for in that patch cycle as well. So if it's not Beastmaster or any of the other things we know about, it's just crazy to me how much more is going into patch 7.5. It's good in the current landscape of things, but I really do hope that Mr. Ozma is hearing some of the feedback regarding when content is actually coming out, because I would love to see him making more of these statements about things that are happening closer to the start of the expansion that meet the new criteria for what Yoshi P wants out of the game. Yes, he did release Chaotic and 7.1x, but it was right after an Ultimate and with no other casual to mid-core content really available, and then it was overscaled. 7.3 introduced Pilgrim's Traverse, which has been a huge hit across all facets of it, facing a few criticisms for sure, but the overall content and its structure is definitely a step up and a better tell of what they want when they say a Final Fantasy 14 for everyone going into future content. We're also seeing that with the variant dungeons coming out and with some of the promises of stuff in 7.5. It's a genuinely exciting time. But these types of ideas need to not take so long into an expansion to happen. And I know while he's largely in charge of battle design and not in charge of these kind of things, he is one of our best connections to the dev team, one of the most open and vocal people on the dev team that we have access to. Yes, Yoshi P listens and acknowledges feedback, but we basically just hear from him either at live events or, once a month or two at a live letter. So this is really our big gap. This is really like the one thing that we've kind of been waiting for a long time, is a dev who really feels connected to all facets of the community and speaks on what he knows, but hears and sees everything in regards to the battle content that is coming out for the game and what is needed to freshen it up, make the rewards more exciting. And I'm just really hoping that he's taking all of that in and taking it back to the respective teams. That's not to say that players should be trying to filter all of their feedback through Masaki Nakagawa. On the flip side, I would like to see more of Final Fantasy XIV's developers actually come into these public spaces. I know it can be a little scary with a lot of the hostilities that exist right now within the Final Fantasy XIV space, and players looking at devs to blame, but it seems to be more of the overall management and direction and less of the individual devs who have clearly put a lot of work into a lot of these different aspects. So I would like him more to be a lead example to the other members of the dev team that are in charge of some major features and getting them connected with all facets of the community, because he's setting a great example, and I'm really excited to see what this new and fresh thing he has planned for patch 7.5x is going to be. And even if it is just Beastmaster, if he's behind it, I'm a lot more confident than I was in it in the 5 minutes before I actually read this tweet. But with that, let me know what you think is going to be happening in patch 7.5x. Do you think Nakagawa is working on something we already know about and is just planning on bringing a new spin to it? Or do you think there's something brand new that we don't know about at all? There's a decent track record for it so far in Dawn Trail, as we have been met with many surprises and things we weren't expecting. This could be another one. Let me know what you think in the comment section of the video below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see all of you in the next one. Until then, take care.